Shouts tore through the night like sudden thunder. Shadows moved erratically across the muddy fields. Explosions lit the darkness, revealing fleeting figures frozen in fear. Confusion spread faster than any command could follow. Entire units vanished into the fog, leaving only silence behind. By the late summer of 1944, the German front in Western Europe was stretched dangerously thin. Years of fighting had drained resources and men. Many units had been pulled from other regions to fill gaps, leaving inexperienced soldiers among the veterans. Supplies were scarce. Food and ammunition often failed to reach the front lines. Morale was fragile, and rumors of retreat traveled quickly through the ranks. Officers tried to enforce discipline, but fear simmered quietly among the soldiers. The terrain was unforgiving. Dense forests, muddy fields, and narrow roads slowed movement and complicated defense. Trenches were hastily dug, often in rocky or waterlogged soil. Defensive positions were scattered and uneven. Communication lines were fragile, telephones and radios often failed during critical moments. Commanders struggled to coordinate artillery, infantry, and armored units. Orders sent forward sometimes never arrived. In the villages near the front, civilians witnessed the strain firsthand. Military convoys moved slowly, carrying men and equipment to positions where they would rarely see safety. Locals heard distant gunfire and explosions at night, the sounds amplified by forests and valleys. Fear was palpable. Soldiers whispered stories of battles lost elsewhere, spreading uncertainty. The atmosphere was tense, a silent anxiety that only grew as darkness fell. The German command tried to maintain a semblance of control. Maps were spread across tables in dimly lit command posts. Officers discussed strategies to hold key positions, but intelligence was unreliable. Reconnaissance reports often contradicted each other, leaving decisions uncertain. Soldiers reinforced barricades and bunkers, but exhaustion and limited resources hindered progress. Despite these efforts, the first signs of vulnerability were already visible. Small outposts were isolated, patrols reported unusual enemy movements, and the sense of anticipation for disaster hung heavily in the air. Every soldier knew the risk, though few admitted it aloud. Fear was a quiet companion, infiltrating every trench and command post. The stage was set for collapse. A single breakthrough could unravel the entire defensive line. And when night fell, the first threads of disorder would begin to weave themselves into a chain reaction that no order or discipline could stop. The night grew darker as movement in the forests increased. Small groups of Allied soldiers advanced quietly, using trees and undergrowth to hide their approach. Mines and traps caught the first patrols unaware. The sound of rifle fire shattered the tense silence. Panic began to ripple through the German lines. Soldiers shouted warnings, but many did not hear them. Orders from officers were inconsistent. Confusion spread faster than any command could restore control. By the early hours, entire sections of the front were cut off. Radio messages revealed pockets of resistance were collapsing. Artillery fire, meant to protect positions, sometimes struck friendly units. Tanks attempted to counterattack, but mud and fallen trees trapped them. Soldiers abandoned heavy equipment to flee. Every moment deepened the chaos. Fear overwhelmed training and discipline. Officers attempted desperate measures to regroup units. They called for reserves, but few arrived. Reinforcements were slow and exhausted. Some commanders tried to form defensive lines in open fields, but these were quickly surrounded. The enemy pressed methodically, exploiting every weakness. Retreating soldiers collided with those advancing, adding to the confusion. Communications broke down entirely. Coordination became impossible. Amid the disorder, isolated acts of bravery emerged. A platoon held a key crossroads long enough to allow others to retreat. A lone radio operator maintained contact with headquarters despite incoming fire. Yet these small successes were fleeting. Without cohesion, the front could not hold. Entire companies were lost to the advancing enemy. Soldiers ran blindly through forests and fields, often disappearing into the darkness. The collapse spread like wildfire. Artillery positions went silent. Trenches were abandoned. Supply wagons were left behind, stuck in mud or destroyed by shellfire. The night became a maze of shadows and panic. Soldiers no longer knew where the enemy was or where safety lay. Every step carried risk. By dawn, it was clear that the German defensive line was failing. Confusion, fear, and exhaustion had replaced strategy. The enemy's advance was relentless. Small pockets of resistance were insufficient to stop it. By the time the first light touched the forest, the scale of the disaster was visible. The front had begun to unravel. Panic-stricken soldiers disappeared into the mist. Commanders struggled to assess the situation. Orders meant to restore control went unanswered. The night had shattered cohesion. What remained was chaos, fear, and the sense that the collapse had only just begun. By dawn, the forest revealed the full horror of the night. Entire regiments had vanished. Roads were strewn with abandoned rifles, helmets, and broken wagons. Trenches lay empty. Artillery positions stood silent, their guns cold and unused. Command posts were deserted. Officers were dead, captured, or unaccounted for. The defensive line no longer existed. Survivors spoke of a night filled with terror. Soldiers ran blindly through mud and fog, some falling into hidden ravines or collapsing from exhaustion. Others were caught in ambushes, unable to escape. Panic had become the only guiding force. Orders were ignored. Coordination was impossible. Every retreating unit collided with another, further spreading confusion. Small groups tried to hold crossroads, fields, or bridges, but the enemy bypassed or overwhelmed them. The attacking forces moved methodically, exploiting every weakness. Forest paths and roads became death traps for those attempting to flee. Tanks and armored vehicles that survived the mud became isolated, surrounded by advancing infantry. The psychological impact was immediate. Fear replaced training. Discipline was gone. Soldiers who had faced battle before now acted instinctively, driven only by survival. Villages along the front bore witness to the chaos. Civilians saw soldiers abandon equipment and vehicles. Barricades were left in ruins. Bridges were destroyed or left unguarded. Homes bore the scars of shellfire and firefights. Smoke rose from burning positions, cutting through the morning mist. The landscape told a story of abandonment, loss, and fear. For the German command, the situation was incomprehensible. Messages from the front arrived sporadically, often conflicting or unclear. Attempts to regroup surviving units failed. By mid-morning, the Allies controlled key sectors, pushing further into previously defended territory. German units that survived were scattered, demoralized, and unable to resist effectively. The battlefield itself was a testament to the collapse. Trenches, once filled with soldiers, lay empty. Artillery shells littered the mud. Barbed wire hung torn and twisted. Abandoned helmets and rifles marked the paths of retreat. Lives were lost, not only in battle but to fear, exhaustion, and confusion. The night's chaos left behind only fragments of human presence. The collapse was not caused by a single error. It was the result of exhaustion, miscommunication, fear, and the relentless pressure of the enemy. What remained were scattered survivors, a shattered command, and a front line that had ceased to exist. The enemy had advanced with minimal resistance. The night had destroyed cohesion, leaving only emptiness in its wake. The forest was silent. Smoke drifted from abandoned positions. Trenches were empty. Helmets and rifles lay scattered in the mud. The ground bore the marks of fear and haste. Soldiers disappeared into the morning mist. Some never returned. Families would not know their fate. Villages were quiet. Only broken roads and abandoned bridges remained. Command posts were deserted. Orders had no one to reach. Maps were left open on tables, flickering lanterns casting shadows on empty chairs. Artillery remained cold. Vehicles were stuck or destroyed. No one came to move them. Those who survived were scattered. Many were too exhausted to regroup. Small units tried to form lines, but coordination was impossible. Fear lingered. Confusion lingered. The collapse had erased structure. The enemy advanced. No resistance stopped them. Open fields and forest paths became their corridors. The front had vanished. Entire sectors of troops were gone. Some bodies would never be found. Some stories would never be told. Civilians remembered fragments. Smoke rising. The sound of distant explosions. Fleeting figures in the forest. But the memory faded quickly. The night became a shadow. Names disappeared from rolls. Faces were forgotten. Maps were redrawn. New units arrived. Equipment was replaced. Yet the silence remained. The forest remembered more than men did. The ground held the echoes of screams. The trees held the shapes of shadows running. History rarely recorded this night. Reports were brief. The scale of the collapse was reduced to numbers and locations. The human element was lost. Those who died were listed as missing. Those who fled carried stories they never shared. The night became invisible in the larger narrative. Only emptiness remained. Silence covered the forest. Abandoned positions waited. Forgotten soldiers vanished from memory. The ground remained, scarred and empty. The front was gone. Time moved on. The world continued. Yet the echo of that night lingered. Quiet. Persistent. Unseen. No memorial marked every lost life. No story fully captured the chaos. The collapse existed only in fragments. In smoke, in mud, in abandoned helmets. Forgotten. Always, if this story mattered to you, consider subscribing. More forgotten history is coming.